Hey guys, John here, and in this video I'll go over how to scrape virtually any website using Next.js and Puppeteer. While web scraping is certainly doable without the use of an automated web browser, it can sometimes be difficult or even impossible to do. Websites have ways of detecting and blocking web scraping scripts, essentially preventing them from getting any data from the site. Some of these sites offer APIs to get data, but the majority of them either require a paid subscription or come with limitations. You may also be able to scrape data from backend API requests, but that's not always possible. More often than not nowadays, that information is obfuscated. To bypass these restrictions, using an automated browser is the way to go. And even though using a web browser makes the process much slower, it at least makes it possible in many cases. Tools like Puppeteer or Playwright allow us to extract data from these sites by mimicking natural user web browsing. So I have a new Next.js project open here on VS Code. You can of course use your IDE of choice. As of Next.js 13, there are two versions of Next, the new app router version and the traditional pages router version. In this video, I'm going to use the new app router version simply because it's the new kid on the block and looks to be the direction Next.js is taking. The topic of this video, which is using Puppeteer to scrape a website, will be applicable in either version. So for our project, we're going to scrape books from a test site called bookstoscrape.com. We'll extract the image URL, the rating, the title, the price, and the availability. We're going to start with an almost blank project here. I'm going to get rid of some of the boilerplate code that comes with the installation. So I'll just remove all this from the global.css file. I'll leave the Tailwind directives because I will be using Tailwind in this project. I'll do the same for the home page here. I'll just leave this main tag. We don't need this image component. As I mentioned before, we're going to be using the Puppeteer to navigate the website. So we'll need to install that. And we're also going to use Cheerio to parse the necessary HTML. So we'll install that as well. I'll start a new terminal down here and do npm install Puppeteer Cheerio. We'll wait for that to finish. Once that's done, we can start coding. Now, this video is about scraping websites using Puppeteer, so I'm going to assume that you're familiar enough with JavaScript and Next.js. I'm going to create a button on the interface to start or launch the app. To do that, in the new app router version, the button needs to be its own client component. So let's create that. I'm going to create a component directory in the app folder right here. And then inside that, create a run scraper button.js file, like so. Then I'll create a functional component. I'll do RAFCE and hit tab. If you're wondering what that bit with RAFCE was, it comes from a VS Code extension called ES7 snippets right here. It helps speed up the workflow essentially. We'll do button with class name. We'll give it a background color of blue. White text. And we'll add a small radius to the corners and give it a Y padding of 3 and an X padding of 5. And we'll call the button Run Scraper. I'm also going to give it an on-click event right here that triggers a handle click function. And I'll declare the handle click function up here. I will leave it like this for now. I'll add code to it in a bit. So since this is a client component, we need to add a use client in quotes up here. Now what this button needs to do is trigger the code in the page.js server component to start running. And the way to do that is as follows. We'll import use router from Next Navigation like so. Make sure it's being imported from Next Navigation and not Next Router. Otherwise it won't work. We'll do const router equals use router. And then we'll do router.push. We give it a route here with a search param. So what this does is once we hit the run scraper button down here, this on-click event will redirect the user to the home page or the page.js component with a search param. This search param will then tell page.js to execute a certain code. In our home page, we do the following. First, we bring in the run scrape button component that we just created. Don't forget to make sure it was imported at the top of the page. And then we'll handle the search param that comes in when the run scrape button is clicked. And we do that like so. We give the home function a search params argument. And let's just add a console log here to check if the search params comes in when we hit our run scraper button. So let's test it. Let's start a server down here. We'll do npm run dev. Then we'll go to localhost 3000 and click the run scraper button. As you can see down here in the console, we get our search params object that was sent by our run scraper button client component. Now you'll notice that there are a couple of empty objects before the search params object here. And that's because the console log was first executed when the component first mounted, when search params had no value yet. It wasn't until we clicked the run scraper button and router pushed to the home page that search params took in a value. So what we should do is put whatever codes we want to run after we hit the run scraper button, in this case the console log, inside an if statement like so. We'll do if search params dot run scraper button console log search params. This should be small r. So now if we refresh our home page without the search param like so, we don't get an empty object on the terminal. It's not until we click the run scraper button that we console log the search params. However, there is an issue at the moment. You can't see it, but I'm clicking on the run scraper button here, but the console log is not being executed. I'm still clicking and nothing. It's not until I refresh the page that the code runs. The reason for this is caching that occurs in the app router version. Our home page, which is a server component, is still using the cached version of itself. And even though we try to redirect to it again and again, no new request is being sent to the server. Those clicks on the run scraper button were being done browser side and thus not affecting the home page. So what we need to do is essentially tell the app to refresh the home page whenever the run scraper button component has redirected to it. And the way to do that is to come here to the run scraper button component and just before the router push command, give it a router refresh command. And this will tell the app to refresh the home page every time the run scraper button component is redirecting to it. And now if we refresh this page and click on the run scraper button, the console log is immediately executed each time. Okay, so let's continue. So now we want to start writing our Puppeteer scraper code, which is going to run on the home page, which is a server component. We can leave this console log here for now. What we could do is create a function and place it inside this if statement. This is the function that's going to kick off our app essentially. And by putting it inside the if statement, we ensure that it only runs when the run scraper button is clicked, which is the same thing as saying search params dot run scraper button is true. So let's do that. We'll call the function runScraper. Let's declare it right down here inside the if statement. I'll just comment it out for now, just so it doesn't run every time we hit save. Okay, now let's require Puppeteer and Cheerio. We'll do const Puppeteer require Puppeteer. Same for Cheerio, const Cheerio require Cheerio. Then we'll create an instance of the Puppeteer browser, and we'll set the headless property to false. This will make the browser open in a window. This is not absolutely necessary. You can certainly run a headless browser. I just like to be able to view the execution of the code on the browser. By default, the headless property is set to true, so if you don't specify anything, it will be headless. Then we'll associate a page variable with the browser, like so, and we'll set the viewport of the browser. I usually set the width to 1300 and the height to 600. That works for me. For my monitor here, feel free to change these to anything or whatever works better for you. Now we need to tell the browser to go to our URL, which in this case is going to be books.toscrape.com. We'll add a wait until property so that the browser waits until all HTML is loaded. And once we get to the main page here, we'll click and go to the mystery category right here, just to showcase a bit of what Puppeteer can do. But before we do that, when writing codes for Puppeteer or any automated browser for that matter, it's important to include pauses in the code so that we don't make too many requests too quickly to the website's server. Otherwise, we'll put too much of a strain on the website's resources and cause our code to get blocked. So we'll create a function that will create a few second delay that we can sprinkle in pertinent spots throughout the code. We'll do const, we'll call the function wait. It'll take in milliseconds, and it'll return a promise after a set timeout method resolves, like so. Next, we need to click on the mystery category. To do that, we need to inspect the DOM and get a CSS selector for the mystery button. So we'll right-click on the mystery button and click Inspect to get our DevTools window. And we can see that the A tag associated with the category button has this href right here. So we need to tell Puppeteer to look in the DOM, find the A tag with the href equal to this right here, and then once it finds it, to go ahead and click on it. So let's do that. Let's create a function to do that for us. We'll do const and we'll call the function click category. That'll take in page as argument. First, we'll store the href in a constant that will in a variable that we'll call cat attr for attribute. Then we'll need to write some Puppeteer code. We'll do if await page dot $, backticks, and then we'll do this is going to be our selector. We'll say a tag with the attribute href that is equal to CAT like so. So if that's true, then go ahead, we'll do await page, go ahead and click on the page, like so. Now this click category function needs to be an async function, like that. So what this does is tell Puppeteer to look for an A tag with an href attribute that has a value of cat attr, and then once it finds it, to go ahead and click on it. And that should take us to the category page. However, before we test this, there's one more piece of code we need to add to it. Oftentimes, the code will run much quicker than the page will load. This will cause this if statement right here to return false and not click on the category page or category link and just move on to the rest of the code, which we don't want. A way to ensure that doesn't happen is to incorporate some kind of a mechanism in the code that tells Puppeteer to try again if at first it doesn't succeed in finding the A tag we're looking for, in the hope that by the time it retries, that the A tag we're looking for will have finished loading. In fact, we can tell it to retry more than once. We can tell it to retry 2, 3 times or even more. But I find that if it doesn't find it, meaning the tag or selector that we're looking for, after 3 tries, then it's just not there. And it can just move on after that. So how do we do that? Well, one way is as follows. We'll replace this if statement right here with this. And I'll explain in just a second after I write this out. So what this does is essentially saying if you can't find our selector, then run the click category again. Otherwise, meaning if it is found, go ahead and click on it. However, we obviously can't leave it at that, because if we keep it like this, this could turn into an infinite loop if the A tag is never found. Click category would just keep running indefinitely. To break it, we need to add an if statement with a counter and a number of retries like so. We'll declare a counter and set it equal to 0 up here. We'll add a post increment operator right here, and then an if statement like so. And I'll explain all this in just a sec. So let's go over this. First, we declare a counter and we set it to 0. And then once called, our click category function will start. If it's able to find our selector, it will just click on it, move on to the next page, and everything is good. If it doesn't find it, then the counter will increment by 1, which will make it equal to 1, which is less than 3, which will make click category run again a second time. Then if it can't find the selector the second time, then the counter will go up 1 increment, which will make it 2, which is still less than 3, which will make our await or our click category function run a third time. After that, if it still hasn't found it, then the code will just move on. I'll go ahead and add a couple second delay right here. I'll also add some console logs here. They'll help us keep up with where things are and help with any debugging that might come up. This will let us know when the code is retrying, and then it'll also let us know when the 3 times or the 3 retries have completed. It still couldn't find it, and it's just moving on. Now I just need to call the click category function up here, and then I'll place a pause, a 3-second pause right here. Okay, so let's test this. I'm just gonna change the URL here to localhost 3000. And then I'm gonna uncomment the run scraper function, and then I'll hit the run scraper button. So the browser comes up, it goes to the website, waits a couple of seconds, and then clicks on the mystery tab. Okay, so we're good. I'll close the browser. I'll change this to localhost 3000 without the search params, just so it doesn't run every time we save. Okay, so let's continue. But now we get to the page we want to scrape from. So we need to do some inspecting. Essentially, we want to find selectors for each bit of data that we want to extract. And I'll go to the mystery tab here. So in our case, we want to extract the image the book image URL, the rating, the title, the price, and whether it's in stock or not. And if we right-click on the image here and click Inspect, we see that this ordered list with the class row right here is where all the books are listed. And each of these LI tags consists of each book. If we expand one of them, we'll expand the first one here, then we find the image container with the image tag and the source. So we can get our image URL from here. And it looks like a relative URL, so we'll need to add the base URL to it, which is just books.toscrape.com. Then if we continue scrolling, we see this star rating class with 4 next to it. And we see that the book has 4 stars. So we can deduce that the class attribute includes the star rating for the book, and that we just need to extract that and get our rating. Let's double check that. Let's look at the next book. And if we scroll down to the class star rating, we see there's a 1 next to it. And then we see that the book on the page has a rating of 1. So yes, this is the rating we're after. So let's go back to where we were. So if we continue on down, below the star rating, we can get the price. And below that, we can get the availability. And also, we will get our title from this H3 tag right here. So let's create a function to parse the DOM for this page. We'll use Cheerio. We can certainly use document.querySelector, but I find using Cheerio for this kind of work to be a better way to do it. So we'll declare our function down here. We'll do const, we'll call it scrape data. It's going to be an async function that takes in page as an argument. To load in the page's content to Cheerio, we'll define a $ variable and set it equal to Cheerio.load await page.content. We use the $ variable because Cheerio is an implementation of a subset of jQuery. So let's get all the LI tags inside this ordered list here with the class row, and then parse each of these LI tags as its own book. And just as we did before, let's make sure that our selector is loaded first before we continue with the rest of the code. And instead of creating a separate counter just for the scrape data function, we'll just use the same counter as we did before in the click category function. We'll just move it to the top of the page so that it's more of a global variable. Now we'll put it right here, like so. And then we'll just make sure that we reset the counter after the function is done, both when it does find the selector and when it doesn't. So let me do that really quick. We'll come down here to click category function, and I'll just set it, reset it down here. This is when it doesn't find the selector and moves on, and this is when it finds it. So now we can use this counter in our scrape data function. I'm going to write out some code for this scrape data function, and then I'll go over what it does. So basically, what we're telling Puppeteer to do here is, if the selector we're looking for hasn't been found, then increment the counter, let us know that via console log that you are running a retry, and then as long as the counter is less than 3, wait a couple seconds and run scrape data again. If the selector is still not found after 3 tries, then just let us know that it wasn't found and that you're moving on. Reset the counter to 0 and then return undefined so that the code moves on. When the selector is found, then we'll go ahead and continue with the rest of the code. We'll do const li tags which is going to equal the $sign and then the selector that we're after. This will get all the li tags inside of the OL element, and then we'll need to loop through each of the li tags and extract our information. We'll do li tags.each. This is all similar to jQuery. And we'll do const image URL, and that's going to be right here. In the image tag, we'll just get the src attribute, but let's just make sure that there are no other image tags inside this li tag. So we'll look, there's nothing there. No. Continuing on here. No image tags, no image tags. So we'll just do equals el.find image and then get attribute src. So let's check this. I'm just going to add a console log here so that we can see the image URL in the console down below. I'll just do image URL. I'll just need to add the function up here after the click category, and we'll squeeze in a wait. We'll do wait 3 seconds. I'll do like so. So let's go to the browser right here and click run scraper and see what happens. So the browser comes up, it goes to the main site, and then clicks on the mystery tab, and let's look in the terminal to see if our books have been printed. And yep, there sure are. They're all here, but we need to change these to absolute URLs. I'll come down here. I'll change that to let, and then I'll do, before I do that, I'm going to declare a base URL. We'll call that is going to be http books to scrape.com. And what we'll do is we'll first, because if we look here, we see that down here in the console, there are some dots and forward slashes that we need to get rid of before we put our base URL right there in front of everything else. So we'll do image URL equals image URL dot replace all. We'll do dot forward slash. And we're going to replace that with nothing. We're essentially going to remove all of them. And then we're going to add a trim just to make sure there's no spaces at the beginning or at the start or end of the URL. And then lastly, the image URL is going to be the base URL plus image URL. I'll hit save, and let's try that again. I'll go to the browser and hit run scraper. The browser comes up, goes to books.toscrape.com, and then clicks on the mystery category. Let's come back and look down in the console, and we can see our URLs with the base URL. So they're all absolute URLs now. Good. So let's continue. Let me close this. I'll do that. So for the star rating, we will extract this class right here. So we'll essentially look for this p tag with this class, star-rating, and then we'll extract the class as an attribute and then we'll remove star rating from it, and that'll leave us with 4. So let's do that. I'll come here, I'll say let star rating equals el dot find the p tag with the star dash rating class, and then from that get the attribute class, and then we'll remove the star dash rating and then do a trim. Let me add that to the console log so that we can check it. I'll hit save, go to the browser, hit run scraper. Browser comes up, does its thing, clicks on mystery. And if we look down here, we see that we do in fact get our image URL and we get the star rating. Good. Now let's get the rest of the data. For the title, we'll get, let me right click and hit inspect on that. We'll come here, the title is inside this H3 tag, so we'll just get the text of the H3 tag. And I looked a little earlier and there was no other H tag in this li tag, so we can just do this. Const title equals el.find the H3 tag, and then get the text from that. And then we'll add a trim to it just to make sure. Save. For the price, we will get that here. We'll just find a p tag with a class price underscore color and get the text of that, and that'll give us the price. So let's do const price el find p tag with price underscore color, and then get the text of that and add a trim. For the availability, we'll do el.find, and we're looking for p tag with this class right here. We'll copy it. This class. Now, these are 2 classes, so we'll just put a dot between them. Dot text dot trim, and then I'll hit save. Then what we'll do is we'll create a book object and then put our data in it. The image URL, star rating, title, price, and availability. So that's our book, and we'll also do this. I'll declare a books array variable and we'll store our books in that. So down here, I'll do books.array.append book. And then what we'll do is instead of this, we'll just console log books array, like that. So let me try this. Come here and click on Run Scraper. We get our browser, books.toscrape.com, goes to the mystery tab, and let's see if it scraped everything we're looking for. No, it did not. There is an error. Oh, sorry. This is push, not append. Let me save this. Now let's try it. And yep, we got our books. They're all here. We get our image URL. Oh, too far. We get our image URL, star rating, title, price, and availability. Okay, good. This is working. But we're not done yet. If we look at this mystery category down here, if we scroll down, we see that there are 2 pages with a next button. So we want Puppeteer browser to click this next button right here. Go on over to the second page and scrape the books from it as well. So how do we do that? So what we'll do is we'll create 2 functions. The first function will scroll down to where, hang on, let me go back to the first page. The scroll function will scroll down to where the next button is, and then we'll create a click next function that will actually click on the next button. So let's do that. So we'll do const, we'll call the function auto scroll. It will be an async function that takes in page as an argument. As before, we'll include a retry mechanism. You don't need to see me type all that again, so I'm just going to fast forward through it. Okay, so let's go over this. It's pretty much the same thing as before. We'll wait a couple of seconds. This is going to be our selector for the next button. I'll show you. We come here and we look, we'll scroll down. This is the next button. We right click on that. So this is the next button, and this is the class that we'll click on. The li tag with the next class. And that's what this is. And then we just say, check if the selector is there or if it has loaded. If it hasn't, increment the counter. Tell us that you're retrying, and then run auto scroll 1 more time. As long as the counter is less than 3. If it has reached 3, then just reset the counter, console log that you're moving on, and then we'll return null or undefined. Now, if the selector is found, then we do the following. Await page dot, and this is a Puppeteer function, page.evaluate selector. We declare our selector element. That's going to equal to document.query selector. And then this is another Puppeteer method that tells Puppeteer to scroll down to until it sees that selector. Like so. So let's check this. I'm going to add auto scroll up here. Let me close these. I'll add a 3-second pause in between here. And let's try it. Click on Run Scraper. Here's the browser, website. And clicks on Mystery. Waits a couple seconds. And then it scrolls down. Perfect. Close the browser. And if we check the console down here, we see that our books have come in. Okay, good. So let's move on. Now we'll declare our click next function. It'll be an async function that takes in page as well. And then all this function is going to do is click the next button. We don't need to check if the selector has loaded in this case because we've already done that in order to scroll down to it. So we know it's there. So we can just go ahead and tell Puppeteer to click on it. And so let's check this really quick. Click next. I'll come up. I'll add a quick pause here, 3 seconds, and then call the click next function with the page argument. I'll save, go to the browser, click run scrape, Okay, so the browser comes up, goes to books.toscrape.com, clicks on mystery. It waits a few seconds. It scrolls down and then clicks on the page, the second page. As we can see down here, we are at page 2 of 2. So I'll close this, and just to double check, let's look at the books in the console. Yep, they are all here. Okay, good. Yeah, I'll need to, let me add the await function here. I didn't do it before, so I'll do it now. Wait 3 seconds, and this is going to be click next, like so. Let's check it again really quick, just to make sure it's working. We'll click on Run Scraper. Here's the browser. Okay, it clicks the mystery tab. It waits for a couple of seconds. It scrolls down, waits a couple of seconds, and then clicks onto the second page. Right here. I'm going to close this. Just do this really quick. And then if we look in the console down here, we see our books. So everything's working so far. Good. And so now that we're on the second page, we just need to scrape the data from that page as well. So I'll just add a pause, 3 seconds, and then we already have the function to scrape the data for us. So we'll just call that here. I'll hit save. Let me add a couple of things here to help us when we're testing the app. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come here after the last function is run, and then I'm going to do console log done. Then I'm going to come down here to scrape data. I'm going to take this books array and I'm going to move it all the way to the top of the page, make it a global variable. I'm going to, as a safety measure, I'm going to make it reset. I'm going to reset the books array every time we hit the run scraper button. And then I'm going to come here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log the books array just before the app finishes. And then I'll also console log the total number of books scraped. Like that. So let's see how this works. I'll click the run scraper button. The browser comes up. It's going to do its thing. And then let's go check in the console. Okay, we see that the books are here, but there's a problem. It says total number of books scraped 40. But that's not right, because if we look here, we know that the mystery category only has 32 results, or 32 books, so we can't have 40. Something's wrong. Let me check. Let me see what it might be. Let me close out of this. Quickly do that. All right, same error I just did. After click next, I need to do this. Wait 3 seconds, and then we'll scrape our data. So we'll try this again. Run scraper. I'll fast forward through this a bit so we don't have to wait for the whole thing here. So we'll look in the console and we'll see what we got here. These are the books. Books are here. And then at the end, we get our total number of books of 32. And then we get done. So this is good. This is working. Let me close out of this. So in this case, we knew that there were 2 pages in the mystery category. But what if we didn't know? Or what if there were 50 pages? It wouldn't be practical to call the functions that need to run in each page 50 times. So what we need to do is make the code run on its own until there are no more pages. And for that, we need to put in place a mechanism by which the code will know whether there are any more pages or not. A way to do that is to do as follows. I'm going to come down here. Wait, I just noticed something. We need to reset the counter here, like so. And I think I forgot to put it here in scrape data either. So it's here when before the selector is found, but then after the selector is found, we need to add it here, like that. And then we don't need this anymore. Save. Okay, so let me come back down here. We'll create a function we'll call next page boolean. It'll be an async function as well that takes in page. Let's load Cheerio here as well. We'll do const $sign equals Cheerio.load page.content. Next, we'll need to put in the retry mechanism, and once again, I'm not going to type it all out. I'm just going to paste it in like so. And basically, this just waits for the next button here to load. If it doesn't find it, it retries. And then once it finds it, it'll return true. Then I'm going to move this to here like that. So essentially, this is a Boolean that this function is, and let me just do this. Every time we call this function, it's going to check if there is a next button or not. If there is, it's going to return true. Otherwise, it'll return null or undefined. And now we can use this function in our code to check for a next button and then act accordingly. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to come up here. So what we can do is we can use a while true loop. We'll tell the code to keep running the pertinent functions in succession as long as the page has a next element, and then stop running if there isn't any. So let's do that. I'm going to get rid of this second scrape data function. I'll get rid of the await as well. And then I'll put all of the repeating functions inside a while true loop, like so. We grab all functions from here to here. We'll cut those and paste them inside here. Now this will make our functions run indefinitely until we add in our next page Boolean condition. And we'll place that right here. What this is going to do is Puppeteer is going to navigate to the first page of the mystery category. It's going to scrape that page. Then it's going to look for, going to check whether or not there is a next button via the next page Boolean condition. And if there isn't a next button, we'll just tell it to break out of the loop. Let me do this as well. I just saw something there. This page.click needs an await right here. Well, one last thing we need to do, and that is to close the browser once the code is done. So we'll just do await browser.close like so. Okay, so let's try this. Click the Run Scraper button. Browser comes up, goes to the website, goes to the mystery tab, waits for a few seconds, scrolls down, clicks onto the second page, and done. It closes, and let me check to see if our books came in. Yep, I see them right down here, 32. So good, it's working. Awesome. And that's it. That covers how to scrape virtually any website using Next.js and Puppeteer. I hope you found the video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.